Uh, yeah, I think I just got it. Uh,
What's the name of the song, Jeff, that they're listening to?
that is Because the Night. The original is by Patti Smith, but that version that I use is by a band called Screaming Females, and also Garbage. They did it like together. Screaming Females are a New Jersey band, so I like to credit them though.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the Death Hour. This evening, I have a very special guest, the great Cannonball, Jeff Cannonball.
Yes,
What's
sir.
up, Jeff?
You are being way too kind. I would say mediocre at best, and I hope I'm not letting people down by being the one here today.
Nope, there's applause, there's everything right now. Dude, we're happy to have you. It's an honor to have you, Jeff.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. I haven't done a podcast in a while, so I'm looking forward to it. If you hear some rustling in the background, my cats are going nuts and all that, so sorry about that.
It's all good, bro. Everybody drop your comments. Jeff Cannonball will answer anything. He doesn't care, right, Jeff?
No, I'm pretty open about anything. I don't think there's anything that you'll get me to not tell on here.
And shout out to Jeff Walbridge, who
Yes,
provided
sir.
a little bit of footage for that music video that we made.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for that.
He says he loves you. Can you see the comments, Jeff?
I do. Yeah. I see that. That's awesome. I've never used this app before, so be patient with me. That's cool. Hello from
Nice, man.
Canada.
We're just going to talk with you a little bit. We're going to play video clips of kind of what we're talking about for the people on Facebook that are watching live right now.
Cool.
Tim says hello from Canada.
That's sick. Haven't been to Canada in a couple months, so I'd love to get back up there as soon as possible. I've been talking to some people about hopefully trying to get closer to Toronto because that's one area I haven't been yet, and I know they do some more of the deathmatch stuff. So than most of the places I've been. So,
What kind of shows you got coming up?
honestly, as I think I told you when we were kind of setting this all up, I'm getting married in less than a month, so a lot more focus has been on that more so than anything. But I think it's actually, if I'm not mistaken, my first show after marriage, kind of getting right back into it, is the H2O Hardcore Kingdom tournament. So I go from standing and getting married to probably bleeding all over the place with my good buddy Mitch over at H2O, where we are the tag champions, and gonna go right back to making a mess of myself and permanently injuring myself some more.
You got a match with Jeff King soon, don't you?
Oh yeah, Jeff King. That's in April. Yeah. WrestleMania weekend. Some guys we rented out Matt Tremont's building, and we're gonna do a whole bunch of shows, kind of like a collective, but for people who aren't traveling. And one of those matches will be Jeff King. I've actually never been in the ring with him, so I do look forward to that, and I'm sure that's going to be a good violent time.
Here it is right here, Saturday,
There
April
you go.
4th, right? This is it?
That is it. You're probably going to be better at this than me right now. My mind is 10 places at once right now, but Sean Henderson's Happily Ever After. For those that don't know, Sean Henderson is a younger guy from up in New Jersey, and he every once in a while kind of runs a kind of like one-off shows. There's not too much story. It's just some matches for the hell of it, for the sake of having fun. And he told me at the last one, my next one will be against Jeff King, which I think will be more bloody than his typical shows kind of get. But I know there's some other good stuff planned, so it'll be a great show. And if you're in New Jersey, if you're not traveling down to, was it Florida this year for WrestleMania, if you're around the area, I mean, if you're close to New Jersey, that's going to be a good weekend to come up to us.
Nice. Okay, real quick. We got some questions flowing in, but before that, I want to go back. I want to go way back. Before you
Okay.
were wrestling. You were in a punk band, no?
Uh,
Name was the Altered Boys?
yes, I was in two bands that did a lot of touring. The last one was Altered Boys, where I didn't expect that to come up. Yeah, I played bass in that band. Um, did like a California tour, a couple tours out to like the Midwest, slightly south, not too far. But yeah, kind of did that for a long time, and then kind of once that kind of dissolved is when I went. I was already wrestling at the time, but once that kind of dissolved, I said like, let me throw everything into wrestling for right now. As a conversation I had with somebody who I'm sure everybody's very familiar with, Schlack, is pretty much, hey, like you could play music when you're old and your body's broken down, but wrestling's not going to be there forever because our knees aren't going to keep up forever. So that was like one of those things that made me think like, all right, let me like throw everything into this for a little bit, see how this goes, and when I'm done with that, I could go play music again. But yeah, I played bass in that band for a few years.
So you were juggling both back and forth for a little while before you ultimately chose wrestling, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It kind of made a lot of things more hectic because I would have to not do wrestling shows because I was going to go play music or vice versa. And there was definitely a couple days where I remember I would go wrestle and I would wrestle first and then have to leave immediately because I had to go play a show. It was definitely way too hectic, and I don't recommend doing both at once unless you're a much better person at time than I am. But I'm no good at that, so I learned my lesson. I'm going to kind of stick to one main thing at a time now.
Do you have any wild stories when you were touring? Any crazy shit happen?
Uh, man, I didn't know you were going to bring up music. I would have probably thought about it more. I
Oh,
remember
I'm
one
gonna bring
time.
up. You better be prepared because I'm actually gonna bring up everything, Jeff.
Oh, geez. Before Alter Boys, I played in a band called Black Kites, and we toured Europe. We went all over Europe. And when I was over there, some guy started talking about wrestling, and I just started wrestling, maybe 2 years in tops. I don't even think it was 2 full years. Nobody knew who I was, including like people who lived right by me. And this guy started talking to me about wrestling, and it was so strange. And this probably isn't like a crazy tour story, but this is the first thing that comes to mind. And he starts asking me about Chikara, which was weird because I had never been in Chikara. And come to find out, he thought I was a masked character at Chikara, who I was not. He thought I was a guy by the name of Mr. Zero, who I'm actually good friends with today, but at the time did not know him whatsoever. And I kind of feel bad for him because he's a chubby fella, but he's not a big fat fuck like me. So kind of says a lot about what this guy thought of him. That's the
Um,
first that comes to mind.
so you ultimately chose wrestling. You don't regret that at all? Because probably when it's said and done, you're gonna go back, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
It's like every once in a while, I'll kind of like start bumming out and wish I was still playing music more often. And I've gotten together with some people and played some music, but overall, no regrets about that. Um, it's one of those things where if I didn't do wrestling, I would have like looked back at life and kind of been real upset with myself for not trying this because wrestling's something I've loved since I was like a 4 year old kid, probably younger even. So, it's one of those things where if I didn't do it, I would have been upset about it years down the line.
Cool. Tony Norman, wildest match moment, or I think he's saying
Oh,
Valen
Mitch.
moment. He wants a Valen moment.
Mitch Valen, great guy, actual lunatic. What you see, if you ever watch a video of him and he's screaming and acting like a raving lunatic, that is him in person 100%. Every time we go over matches and things like that, I kind of have to rein him in. Um, I think the wildest moment would be probably we had a match against Casanova Valentine and Low Life Louie not too long ago, and he wanted to do his thing where he brought a bowling ball that looked like an eyeball, and he goes, "I'm going to go out of the ring and get that, and I'll bring it in, and we'll do this and whatever else." And so I was like, "All right, whatever." And so he got the ball, and unbeknownst to me, or I think anybody at the time, he starts walking around ringside mid match during the match. With the ball on his crotch, with an eyeball, just screaming, "Look at it!" at everybody who was by him. And he probably did this for a straight minute to a minute and a half. Where at the time of the match, it was just like, this is way too long, dude. But like, he is unlike anybody else I've ever met. If you are not familiar with him, because I know he's kind of newer, especially in death matches, learn about him because he is an enigma and he is a actual lunatic of a person in the violent way, as well as just a. There's nobody like him. Nobody like him whatsoever.
I love you guys together. Whoever
Thank
made the
you.
decision to put you guys together, fucking brilliant, man.
Uh,
Casanova Valentine. Speaking of him, he's right there. He loves you. He's
yes,
watching.
big fan of Casanova Valentine. Uh, I always tell him every time we wrestle, I go, I'm kind of over the no ring thing. But then I'll wrestle him in one of those, and I end up loving it again. So I don't know how I feel about everything, but he's a great guy. I've told him since I met him, he built out a whole little niche for himself, and that's something that you don't see ever. You don't see people kind of take it on themselves and do it on their own, and he killed it.
Yeah, definitely. He's self-made. Thoughts on his
100%.
infamous Satan cock who was stolen over the weekend?
I'm okay with that being stolen because I've felt what that feels like. I've been hit with that several times, so whoever stole it can keep it. Just don't bring it back.
Cody Hunter, Jeff Cannonball is a fellow fat vegan, and I'm obligated to like him.
I'm okay with getting that vote just based off that bias. If that's all that you like about me, cool, perfect.
So, is this kind of where you started, or no? Am I getting this
Yes.
wrong?
Oh,
And
you
is this
got it.
the guy that trained you?
Yes, it is. Corey Havoc at NWS, National Wrestling Superstars. I also credit Corvus Fear, who now wrestles as Eric Corvus. He did some time in like Beyond and CZW for a minute as well, a couple years back. But yeah, that's where I started. It pretty much started because I think I posted on like MySpace at the time. This was almost 10 years ago that I wanted. This was probably more than 10 years ago that I wanted to try wrestling, and a buddy of mine goes, "Hey, I know somebody who does it every weekend. I can introduce you." He introduced me to Corey Havoc here, and started going to shows, setting up rings, setting up chairs, and he would train me, and then it kind of everything just went from there. So my first couple years of wrestling were pretty much just for NWS. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was the carniest of carny shows. Um, it was pretty much just this old dude ran them all, and it was pretty much he would find any way possible to get fans money, and he did. He was very good at what he did, and then it would be the main event was always something like Kamala versus Danny DeMonto, or the Patriot versus Danny DeMonto, or Corey Havoc, or Kevin Matthews from TNA now. Uh, and then the undercard would be kind of like a bunch of guys like me at the time who we were all just kind of crappy dudes figuring out how to wrestle as we went. And it's also where Joey Janela came from, and a few other people like kind of
Oh, I didn't
passed
know
through.
that.
Yeah, Joey Janela got his start there. If you watch, I know he's got a documentary on YouTube or something. He talks about it. Devin Moore passed through there a few times. I'm sure a few other people, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it was a garbage little promotion, but a lot of cool people came through.
That's awesome. And what was your biggest match there? Would you say just someone we wouldn't know, or did you
Uh,
fight like someone like Joey or someone?
oh, I definitely had matches with Joey. Actually, this is he probably won't tell the story, but his my second match ever, or no, third match ever. It was me and somebody I forget who it was versus Joey Janela, who was dressed up as a monkey, doing a gimmick at the time, Nico the Monkey Man, which I am positive you could find videos of that on YouTube. He will not advertise that, but go ahead and search NWS Nico the Monkey Man, and you'll see a young Joey Janela dressed as a monkey. Uh, so that's something. I also got to wrestle like Tommy Dreamer there, Balls Mahoney. Um,
Wow.
yeah, a few cool names. Danny Doring, who was in ECW for a little bit. I got to wrestle. They knew I wanted to do like hardcore stuff, so when it came to like, here's an ECW guy, it was pretty much like I got to wrestle them, and that was really cool for me. Like, especially as a guy who had no business being in the ring at the time with like people of that stature, that was really cool for me to get to do.
Nice. Okay, you brought it up a little earlier. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to mention this real quick. You're getting married soon.
Yep.
Play the wedding music. We need some chapel music right now. You can't hear it, Jeff, but
I gotta hear from your
in wedding
speakers.
music. I want to say congratulations. That's awesome, man.
Hey, thank you, thank you. I know you wanted to do this a couple days ago, or I think we were supposed to do this earlier, but like I said, it's just I can't keep track of everything. That's the future wife's job. She tells me when we're doing things, and if I forget them, I get yelled at. So
So no
that's
cold feet, right? You're ready for this cannonball.
I'm ready. I'm more nervous about everything. I mean, I'm not nervous about marriage, but I am nervous about a wedding. I have a dumb brain that makes me want to make sure everybody else is having a good time, so I'm more like worried about that than myself. But yep, I don't know, man. It's something that's different. You know, I've done so many weird, dumb things in my life, and throwing the most expensive party I've ever had for myself, just to say I love you to a girl I've been dating for 4 years, is a weird move.
That's
As she's sitting
awesome.
off to the side and just made a weird face at me as she's putting together something that's probably for our apartment that I don't even know what it is.
Well, congratulations to you guys again on that
Thank
one.
you. Thank you. That's awesome.
How did you get the big scar on your arm? I think I have footage of it, but if you want to tell
Oh,
everyone,
really? Uh,
is it from
it,
H2O or no?
yeah, it
Subborn.
was. It was a match. It was. I think it was the first subterranean violence. If I'm not, it was either the first or the second one.
Yeah, it was the
It
first
was
one.
okay. Hey, I trust you. It was me and Bam Sullivan,
Yep.
and it was some cut soda cans. I don't know what the difference was because I've used cut soda cans before, and it just ripped my arm wide open. And I remember even during the match hearing fans that were like right in the front row, staying right at ringside, pretty much telling me how bad the cut is while I was still wrestling. I got to the back, and I know there's a picture of this probably on my Facebook, probably Instagram, and all that of Low Life Louie super gluing my arm back together. It probably should have gotten, I would say, 14, 15 stitches.
Run that
And
twister.
I had it. Yep, there you go. Perfect. And it's funny because I had just gotten health insurance at the time, but I forgot that I had health insurance. So this was the best idea. Where yeah, Drew Chaos and Low Life Louie super gluing a cut that is probably, I don't know, it's probably about 6 or 7 inches. Trying to get it over here somewhere. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Yeah, 6 or 7 inch cut, and they super glued it together. And the next day, I went to the beach and went in the ocean because I love going into the ocean because I'm a child. And it kept popping open, and I kept re-gluing it shut. So it healed terribly, and now it's just this giant thing that Jimmy Lloyd, Joe Gacy, Matt Tremont, a bunch of other people have dubbed the worm. And that's so apparently I just have a giant worm on my arm now forever.
Yeah, it looked pretty nasty on DVD, I remember, and especially the footage because they show that footage as I can't find it right now. I was supposed to be playing it, so I'm just showing.
Oh well,
But
they,
yeah,
they they have the footage of them closing it afterwards.
yeah, low life
Oh,
gluing it,
I didn't even know that, and I probably have that DVD. I probably just never put it on, honestly.
and you look vicious the whole time. You're just looking at the screen like you give zero fucks.
That seems to be the thing I'm good at. That and the other thing a lot of people still talk to me about is that Vice documentary where they pull the Kenzen out of my head, and people still to this day will come up to me at shows and tell me how I look like I just sat there and didn't care at all and just kind of let it happen. But truth was, I just really didn't want to go to the hospital with a chunk of metal in my head. So
How bad did that really hurt? I mean, it looks so painful. It's just crazy. It's one of the because we've seen a few Kenzans being ripped out of people's heads, but that one
yeah,
was just more brutal than most.
that one took some time. It was actually the second time I used a Kenzen, or I had a Kenzen used on me, I should say. And by far, that one coming out was probably to this day the worst feeling I've ever felt in wrestling. Um, in that documentary that's on YouTube, I think they show like 35 seconds of it. It probably took like 3 to 4 minutes of them just yanking on it. At one point, two people had pliers and they were going to town on it, and it wasn't coming. So finally, Scrawny Shawnee, I believe it is, finally, he was the one. He stood up on a chair, and as he's pulling, you kind of see me in the video. I start to like kind of raise with it, and then I just put all my weight and just plop back down the chair, and it popped right out and makes a disgusting sound that if you watch it, you can hear clear as day. And
Yeah, we're looking at it right now. It look he's
I was just
standing
happy it
up.
came out because after the first couple tries where it wasn't coming, I was convinced I'm going to the hospital and I'm going to have to tell them I have this chunk of metal in my head and I just need to get it ripped out. So I was just happy it came out at the time.
um, After the Vice documentary, did you get a lot of people like coming up to you because that was like on television, right?
Yeah. And I think on YouTube to this day, and I haven't watched in a while, but I'm pretty sure it was like 4.5 million views last time I looked. But yeah, I couldn't go to a show without somebody, whether it be fans or other wrestlers, asking me about it or asking how it felt. I carried it around my bag for a while, so I had that Kenzan in my wrestling bag, so I'd often just pull that out, and that was my party trick, is just showing it off because people would ask me about it. But even better than that, at the time I was working at this office, because I'm a normal ass dude. I work a 9 to 5 job, so I was working at an office, very like generic office, cubicle, all this stuff at a computer all day, and two different people there would come up to me like, "Hey, I think I saw you on YouTube or Vice or whatever," and that was weird because like that's like me at work. That's not ready to talk wrestling at all. One of them like was a dude who I was like kind of cool with, and he just happened to like watch Vice a lot. The other dude, I did not know him at all, and that blew my mind. I didn't know what to say. And then at one point, I remember seeing on Twitter a guy was like, "I just realized that this guy works with me," and I had no idea who he was. To this day, I've never met that dude in the office or outside of it. And he was just a dude who worked there, saw that documentary, and found out I worked there, and tweeted about me.
That's crazy how, you have a shoot job and everyone there just doesn't even know that you're Jeff Cannonball. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I don't work at that job anymore. I moved jobs since then, and I try to keep it quiet for a while. And eventually, one guy found out, and then he told everybody. And next thing I know, people are pulling me over to watch me on YouTube. So,
Are they amazed by it?
yeah, it's weird. It's so positive because you would think like, because of course they're not pulling up like normal matches. They're pulling up the bloodiest death matches they could find.
Mhm.
Um, and these are guys who have probably never seen a death match. And now they're seeing this guy who works a few rows over from them, and it's always positive. It's never like what the fuck is wrong with you or anything like that. It's always like you're badass. This is crazy. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, let me know when there's gonna be another one. I don't think any of them have ever actually come out. I think that might be too real for them. But no, like it's always positive, but it's such a strange feeling. Like at work, I wear a button-down shirt, and people are talking to me about like this weird thing I do where I'm all cut up and laying in barbed wire and all this stuff.
Derek Maverick, most memorable match you've had.
Oh, I don't know. There's so many different ones for such different reasons. My last singles match with G Raver would probably rank up there. It was GCW a couple years ago. Um, and I just remember we did a lot with the tattoo needles and cinder blocks, and every time I get to wrestle G Raver, we do something stupid and something that like both of us like are. We get very excited when we're together. So that's probably one. Another one, I'm sorry to kind of go away from the whole deathmatch thing a little bit, but like one of my biggest ones I think that I was most happy about was wrestling New Jack, where people would like hit me up and be like, "Don't do that! Like he's gonna try to kill you, he's gonna stab you," and then wrestled him, and it was a great time. I mean, it didn't feel great, but I didn't get stabbed, and afterwards, it was one of those things where like when I first got into like hardcore wrestling, like, watching it, it was because my dad would tape ECW like overnight because I was a child, so I'd be asleep, and he knew I was a big wrestling fan. He'd be like, "You got to see what's going on at like 2 a.m. on this channel," and so he started taping it. And ever since I was a kid, New Jack was the guy who stood out. So getting to actually wrestle him and have people warn me not to do it, that was a really cool thing. So
What else is your influences in like the deathmatch side of it? What got you into it all when you
it
were
was
watching?
so it all started when I was real young, probably younger than most people. When they get into death matches. Also, what's up to John? I love that dude, great guy. Um, so what was it like when Mankind first came to WWF, or even like before that in ECW when my dad would tape it? I was probably in like seventh grade, and my dad was taping like all this ECW. So like I would go find out more about him, and that's how I found like 1995 King of the Death matches in Japan. and so I started watching, Mr. Pogo and Matsunaga and all those. I started buying VHS tapes on eBay, just like looking for like I knew to look for FMW or IWA Japan, and I would buy all these VHS tapes. But ever since I was a kid, Mr. Pogo, he was probably number one. Watching guys like him, that was what really like made me go, "This is what I want to try to do one day." And like him, Mick Foley, Matsunaga, those were the three big ones. But from a young age, which like I said, it's weird to say like because what well-adjusted seventh grader is like going home and putting on death matches and like piranha tank matches and all that. But Mr. Pogo was probably like a top 10 favorite like wrestler overall, like throughout the Attitude Era and everything. Like he was my guy.
Yeah, Mr. Pogo was sick. I love him too. He's someone that got me first fucking,
Oh
into
yeah, I think
John.
everybody got to see him and Matsunaga, and those matches just blew everybody's mind because at the time you didn't see anything like that in America. I mean, not they weren't in America, but for me, I got to watch it, and you never saw anything like that.
Yeah, I think I caught like a RF videotape back in the
Yeah,
day that had him with the fire coffin, and I was
sure.
hooked
Yes, yes.
on.
I could probably
You,
dig those VHSs out of my parents' attic to this day.
man, I wish I still had those fucking old tapes. Your boy John here wants to know who is your toughest opponent you had.
Oh man, uh, there's probably so many. Okay. I'll say this because I know everybody will be happy to hear this. Schlack is probably it because in the times I've wrestled Schlack, I've lost a fingernail, I've torn a tendon, I've been knocked unconscious, uh, I've gotten multiple concussions. I've only been to the hospital from wrestling twice, and one of those, the last time, was after wrestling Schlack. So I got to say him. It's never a picnic, and you always come out feeling a little worse for wear afterwards. So I'm definitely going to go with him because I don't think I could list off injuries or other things like that from any other wrestler I've ever faced.
Let Let's talk about that.
All
That
right.
happened at GCW. Red means green, I believe. It involved a light tube bundle that had salt in it. No.
Uh, is that Redman? I mean, you're probably better with the name. So there was two that I got hurt at with him. One was at the one of the Asbury Park shows, and the other one I think it was Red Means Green. I think you're right. Um, it was in the old GCW compound, which was
Yes.
an awesome place for shows. And yeah, not only was there like a light tube with the salt in it, but I'm pretty sure I got a concussion earlier in that match too. At one point, my head was just leaning over the side of the ring, and he hit it on like right on top with a chair. And I remember things started going bad at that time. But a little bit later, towards the end, he put the light tube with the salt and everything on me, and I think he elbow dropped it with a chair. Or he put a chair on it and elbow dropped that. And as soon as he hit, everything like the entire room was just spinning and spinning. Like it was like a roller coaster. It was unbelievable. And I don't know like how kayfabe we're doing, but there was supposed to be more in that match, and we had other things planned. And I remember telling the ref like, I don't know what's going on right now. Like I genuinely like I knew where I was, but I kind of didn't know what I was supposed to do. So he beat me, and I remember another thing. Fans right in the front row started yelling for the EMT because they could tell things weren't right. And so they come, and again, Low Life Louie, he's one of my dudes. He's in my wedding. He's one of the groomsmen. Got in the ring. They helped me out. And as I'm walking back through the curtain, before I even made it to the curtain, if you watch, I don't know if it's on the DVD, I like take a knee because I was convinced I was going to pass out, and I thought I was just going to drop. And they get me through the curtain. I go out the door. I sit on the sidewalk. Everything's spinning. I've got a couple bad cuts on my head, but nothing terrible. And then I drove myself home. I actually drove myself and KTB home that night, which I probably should not have done. And then I think it was the next day. I ended up waking up still feeling everything was still spinning. So I went to the hospital, and they pretty much said you have a terrible, terrible concussion, and you shouldn't have driven home, and you shouldn't go to work. And so that was pretty much that was the extent of that one. But yeah, that match was awesome, and it's probably one of the most violent matches I've ever been a part of.
Well, thanks to TJ Brown and our friends at TJ and Friends, last night he sent us over some never before seen footage that we're looking at. of his
Okay.
fan cam, and it shows you outside, and Shellac
Oh
actually comes
wow.
over to check on you.
Okay.
Big Joe
Wow.
Cass is there checking on you too.
I'll have to watch that later. Yeah, it was. I remember them. Homicide came over for a minute. I think Angela, Loef Lou's wife, was there, if I remember correctly. I mean, if you're watching now, you probably know better than I do. But yeah, I
It
remember a lot of
looked
people
really,
checking on.
really scary, but it looks scarier than how you're saying it, you know?
Yeah, I believe that. Watching it back, I bet you it's probably like almost different than what I even remember because that whole night was just a blur. I definitely should not have driven home, and I remember there was two fans there from Russia, and before I left, they like really wanted to buy a shirt, and so I made sure to at least get that done because like they came all the way from fucking Russia, so I wasn't gonna be like, hey, fuck off, I gotta go home, like I'm dying right now. So that was a really cool thing. I'm glad I remember that at least. It's a weird thing. I don't know why that stood out.
Do you think some of that was the salt, like, and the light tube, like, dust at the same time, maybe, like, took your
I
breath away?
think yeah, oh, 100% because I couldn't breathe immediately, and I remember tasting salt at the time, and not being happy about that. But yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely couldn't breathe on top of everything else. So like, I think it definitely added to the panic. It wasn't just like a panic of everything spinning; it's a panic of like I've got all this crap in my mouth now, and I can't breathe in without it hurting or like feeling like it obviously shouldn't feel. So yeah, that definitely didn't help the situation. It definitely added to the whole overall panic of everything.
So it's safe to say you probably don't wanna fuck around with salt tubes anymore, do you?
Not in a tube form. Not in tube form.
Yeah.
I've used salt since then because I'm not a smart person, so it's still been involved.
Neil Diamond Cutter, he loves you.
Great dude, great dude. Never got to be in the ring with him either. I'd love to do that one day.
Yeah, that would be a great match. I would love to see that. Cody
Oh
Hunter,
yeah.
hey Jeff, would you rather do Kenzans again or exploding barbed wire in FMW?
I will say this. I don't think I would say no to Kenzans, which is again shows how smart I am. But I've never done exploding barbed wire. I've never done exploding anything, so I would happily step up to that. I would do that in a heartbeat. No thought about it.
Who's your dream opponent in Japan if you could face him?
Abdullah Kobayashi. Obviously, I've got love for him because he's another fat dude. Over the top charisma. Obviously, like, I'm a huge fan of all the guys over there, but Abdullah Kobayashi is definitely the one that I think I'm most like. So I think a match between he and I would probably be, for me, the most fun. It would make the most sense. He's also probably the first guy I ever saw do a Kenzan. Use a Kenzan or get one bashed into his head by Nick Gage at TOD 9 or 7, one of the ones around there. And so I think I owe a lot to him of my dumb decision making. Some of it definitely stems from him.
People want your shirts. People want your merch. What's up? Where can they get it?
Uh, I'm bad at this. I used to be really good at this online sales and everything. I have since gotten worse. Send me a message online if I will let you know what I have. Um, I know I have limited sizes right now. The shirt that I've been wearing in most of my matches recently is me with the blonde horseshoe hair. It says, "Have you seen him?" It's got my name on it, real small. I've got a couple of those left over. That's all I got right now, though. But definitely limited sizes. But yeah, send me a message. I used to have a whole site set up for that. I've since gotten lazy at that. So send me a message if I have it. We'll make it work. I'll make that work for sure.
Rob Marsh, he loves you too. All the deathmatch guys in here loving you, man.
Rob Marsh, great dude, and he and I have joked a lot. There we go. That's the only shirt I have right now. Rob Marsh and I have joked a lot. We've wrestled each other twice, and neither of them were death matches. And I think both times we were both kind of wishing they were. But both matches were good matches for two dudes known to do death matches to kind of have normal matches. I think they were much better than people would give us credit for. And I
We
think
had a
that
couple we had a couple questions from some people that like are overseas, so they're in bed, they couldn't make it. And one of them
okay.
was about this hairdo here. Is there any story behind like that do for a month that you
Uh,
wear?
pretty much all that was I don't take myself seriously whatsoever. I kind of treat my entire life as a joke for the most part, and that made me laugh. I grew that hair out for, I would say, 6 months, all knowing where it was going, where I was just going to end up doing that. I didn't tell anybody. It made me laugh, so I kept doing it. It was the longest my hair's been since 2011 when I started shaving my head. And the day before Hardcore Kingdom, the last Hardcore Kingdom, which was an awesome show, top to bottom, I shaved the bald spot in my head. My fiance helped me bleach my hair. She was not happy about that, or happy about my decision to do that. When we went out to get food before the show, I was forced to wear a beanie the entire time. She wouldn't let me be seen with that. And so once we got to the show, I got a ski mask, and I came out wearing the ski mask. And these are all things that I just honestly, I wish there was a better story, but it's just literally, I think it's funny, so I did it. I wore the ski mask because I knew people would be like, "Oh, like he's trying to do like a cool entry. He looks tough or whatever with a ski mask." And then I pulled it off, and I had that haircut, and immediately there was dueling chants of "what the fuck" and "holy shit." So I felt like I accomplished everything I wanted. Uh, the next day, I tried to go out with that haircut, and the fiance once again told me no, and I had to shave it immediately.
I love that hairdo. You need to do it again one day.
I would love to, but you are getting a face from off camera right now.
Okay, man. I want to ask you something tough. Are you down for that?
Oh man,
It's not
yes,
gonna.
and yes, I will answer this real quick. I have tried the Beyond Burger; is my favorite of the veggie burgers. So
And what about the Popeyes chicken sandwich versus that Chick-fil-A thing? What's better?
I've
All right.
never had either of them, so I don't know what either of them taste like.
Okay,
One
here's a
family
very
does
tough
say
question, Jeff.
all right,
Bear
go
with
ahead.
me, man. Let me get this shit off the screen. Hold up.
Oh no, I'm
Hey,
scared.
man, we want this. Where the fuck is it? We had enough, man. We want this back right now. Your show. Flaming fucking table. You brought it back.
uh,
You like cock teased us a few months ago. You brought it back and then you took it again.
yeah, man, I'll be honest. That all comes with me being lazy. I'll be honest. I get discouraged easily when things don't get as much attention as I hope they did. I get real bummed out on everything, which is such a crybaby answer, but that's the honest truth. Is I just kind of get bummed out. But I would definitely be doing more. I recently, and it's too far away from here, else I'd grab it. Within the past couple months, I spent almost $200 on just hot sauce. So there's definitely other things to be done. It will come back. It will definitely. Oh, hold on, wait 1 second. So I spent. I don't know if you can see it.
Holy
This basket. It was $200 worth. I've got the new version of the Packy One Chip Challenge. I've got spicy honey. I've got this hot sauce here, which is the most expensive hot sauce I've ever bought. It was $50. So it'll come back because I have this basket of crap I got to do something with. Um, so yeah, there'll be more flaming table. It's just a matter of me. I'll say after the wedding. Once the wedding's done, I will put this to use because there's stuff in here that I haven't even opened yet, haven't even tried yet. So I got plenty of stuff to do. I just got to, and I got to convince people to do it with me. It's shockingly not always easy to convince people to sit down with you and purposely burn themselves and hurt their stomachs and probably borderline shit themselves later that day for no money. So that's the other thing. If you guys convince people to do it with me, it'll probably be a lot easier.
What's the hottest shit you've ever ate? Like, what's the hottest sauce you've ever had?
Uh, the hottest thing I ever did actually is probably, I think it's probably this. It's on YouTube. It's me and Louie. It's the Death Nut Challenge. It's 5 peanuts that are just coated in the hottest crap you could find. And there's a whole thing to it where you like chew it for 30 seconds. You have to sit for a minute and a half and let it just burn you. And then you do the next one. And the last one is coated in like Carolina Reaper and Pepper X and Ghost Pepper. Um, it's just these two peanuts, but like it was so hot that it messed my stomach up and I threw up. And I threw up so hard that I have a scar up here, like a longer scar. It broke open and I literally started bleeding from my head because I was puking so hard. So I got to give it to that one. And they've made a Death Nut 2.0. I'm not fast to try that one, but I'm sure I will eventually.
The Death Nuts, is that what you and Low Life Louie
Yeah.
were doing on YouTube?
Yeah, and that I think I'm sure as soon as we end this, I'll probably think of something hotter. But that was probably the hottest thing to me. That was just a miserable experience all around.
Yeah, I watched that the other night. That was crazy.
Yeah, that I'm not having fun
Um,
in that one. My shirt comes off. I try to eat rice and spit it out because it turned rice spicy somehow, and I started bleeding, and it was a miserable, miserable time for me.
right now, we're looking at a small clip from your show, Flaming Table, of young Drew Parker trying to act hard, and he grabs more of the sauce and just starts eating it. Then Jimmy Lloyd tries to get in and eat more.
Was that is that the one where we have the Carolina Reaper mustard?
They say milk's good for.
It's like a jar
Yes,
of, and we have That's
yes,
actually.
it is.
Do I have that over here? No, I don't have that by me. Now I got this whole thing of props next to me. Um, that was a rough one too. Actually, that was really good though. I ended up eating a lot of that. I think I still have some of that mustard somewhere. But yeah, that's super hot. And Drew Parker.
All right, before we get
I
out of
don't
here,
know if
let's
you've
wrap
ever
up.
been to England, but their taste buds.
Drew Parker, yo, best Nick Gage.
I might lose some people on this one, but their taste buds are garbage. They like very
Bring my
bland.
fucking pussy,
They
man.
like very bland food. I remember being in England and somebody being
Triple
like,
fucking dick,
"I
man.
made this
Fucking
chili,
do
but
it.
be careful, it's super
NG,
hot."
fuck.
And it tasted like water. Like it literally had nothing to it. And I remember talking to Drew Parker about it, and he agreed with me on it. So if you're mad at me, be mad at him too. And that was definitely the hottest thing he had ever eaten before. And he keeps going into it, and then they start swinging chairs at each other. That was probably one of the most fun episodes I've done.
Nice. Well, I hope you bring that back one day. I enjoy watching it.
We will.
Tom,
We definitely will.
tomfoolery. Is there any spot you won't do? Fucking fire, anything, man. Pigeon
Uh,
spike.
the only thing that I mean, the pigeon spikes. I don't know if anybody's doing that at this point. I think Marcus would be mad if I tried to do it.
Yeah, those are about done at this point. You're right.
I don't think I'm trying that one. So yeah, I guess that would be a no. But the one thing that I've been asked to do, and I've kind of been hesitant, and I never ended up doing it, is just like barefoot thumbtacks. That doesn't seem interesting to me at all. I've done barefoot Legos and like bottle caps, but when it comes to barefoot and thumbtacks, that's too much for me. I don't need to feel that, and I have gross feet. Nobody wants to see that garbage. That's not going to sell any tickets. But yeah, that's the one thing is barefoot thumbtacks. I've been offered it once, and I didn't say no, but I was obviously not excited, and they changed it, and I was very thankful about that.
What do you think of this match here? That John says maybe that's a dream match he wants right there.
I would be all for it. I've never been to Japan. I mean, I know Schlack and Tremont, they've been killing it over there. Tremont, I saw right before we started this. He landed. He's home now. But yeah, I mean, I would kill for any match in Japan, honestly. Anything over there would be a great time. And to do something like that with three of my good friends versus a bunch of actual legends, that'd be incredible. And yeah, Tremont's arm was.
Yeah, I was going to ask you your
Cool.
thoughts on this injury that happened.
I actually, and maybe you could tell me, I didn't. How did that happen? I didn't see how that happened or anything.
Sakuda did like a kind of like a backflip off the top rope. Like I don't know what it was called, but it was crazy. I don't know. There's no clips yet, so I haven't really even seen it.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen anything from it. But yeah, that's an intense cut. But I get why Matt just taped it up and kept going. I mean, he's in Japan. That's an opportunity not everybody gets. So you got to make the best of it, even if you do get hurt like that. So, and if you, I don't know if you saw, there's another picture where they're wrapping the towel around. He's got the two young boys, and he looks like he couldn't be happier. So, and I knowing that, he couldn't have been happier. So.
He said he's taping it up in Wrestling Saturday Night. So
I believe it. I believe it.
dream match from John. Did you already ask? Maybe did you answer that?
I don't know.
You got another one, maybe a second dream match.
I'm sure I do. You know what? I've wrestled him before and I've tagged with him, but I've never had Gage in a singles match. So I'll kind of go with a more realistic answer than some just big dream match that'll never happen. But I would say probably Gage in a singles match is the one, like realistic one that I would really like to have. Abdullah Kobayashi, that's another dream one for sure.
Nice. Cody Hunter. What is this? Chano. You get that?
that without so that
Uh,
was one of the first flaming tables, and Chondo, before we started filming, told me Jimmy Lyon Chondo, he told me that the hottest thing he ever had was the cheese sauce on a quesadilla at Taco Bell, and that's nothing compared to anything I have, especially like at the time. So within the first couple bites, he ran, and this is on YouTube as well. Look up Flaming Table Jimmy Lyon. It's hilarious, even if you're not a big fan of Jimmy Lyon, which you shouldn't be because he's a garbage person. He runs over to my bathtub and just starts drinking out of our bathtub, which I'll be honest was probably not the cleanest thing in the world. So I didn't have to Kenzen him, or yeah, I didn't have to Kenzen him or anything. He probably he paid enough price just by drinking out of the bathtub.
um, let's see. I wanted to ask you about um, your first death match ever. Was that with Matt Tremont and OPW, or was that like your first real death match?
Yeah, probably. Before then, I've done things with like doors and chairs, uh, stop signs. I used thumbtacks a couple times before that. You know what? Actually, I'll say the Tremont one was probably the first one that I got any notoriety. But the first one I really did was me and Danny DeMonto. It was probably about a year before that, and it didn't get much traction or anything, but it's a good match. It's actually on YouTube. It was for this small company, RTF Wrestling, that I helped run, and it was all thumbtacks on everything. So that was probably the first actual death match. But yeah, the first like real like barbed wire Kenzans, things like that was with Tremont at OPW 2015, I think. I'm not good with this kind of thing. Uh, but yeah, for sure. That was the first one that anybody really saw. Nobody really at the time, especially in like the grand scheme of things, knew who I was. So I was definitely out to impress. And yeah, that was probably the first one that you could really find on like Smart Mark, and it might even be on Independent Wrestling TV. I don't know for sure. Um, I know it was 2 years into the company. I'm not good with names and things like that. I'm sorry. But yeah, it was a good match, and it was definitely something where I was like trying to show everybody what I want to do, and try to kind of start making my name for myself. And I definitely enjoyed that match. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I definitely do enjoy that match.
Were you real nervous going in there with Tremont? How established was he at that time?
He definitely had already won a bunch of the tournaments. He was
Okay.
already, yeah, he was well known by this point already. He already
So were
had
you nervous?
done. Probably it was actually my second time wrestling Tremont. The first time I wrestled him was on a show that probably nobody really saw. It was me and Corey Havoc, my original trainer, versus him and Devon Dudley. Actually, not a death match at all. And I think as nervous as I would have been with Tremont, the fact that Devon Dudley there kind of trumped him on that one. No offense to Matt, but yeah, for that one, I think I was more just nervous about. I knew that was my first death match people were going to see. And I was in there with one of the guys who, in my opinion, is probably top 3 to ever do it, if not, higher. So I think I was more just nervous about not only impressing the fans and stuff, but just kind of like he went to bat for me, and he was the one who got me in there. He and I had already started like kind of building a little friendship, so I definitely wanted to impress him. So as nervous as I was to impress fans, I think I was just more just out to impress and more nervous for that than being worried I would get hurt or anything like that.
So after that, that was a gateway to CZW, right?
Definitely,
Were you-
100%. Still took a little bit of time, but that 100% was what kind of got my foot in the door.
What happened at the end with that? Did they just stop calling, or did you end on good terms? What was it with DJ High at the end?
Um, Without telling too much, I'll save some of it. At the last TOD, I was in. Not the I came back and did the one with Tremont and Toby Klein, but the one that Jimmy Havoc won. There was some backstage stuff I wasn't happy about, and I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I physically tried to fight DJ Hyde in his parents' backyard. Uh, and G Raver and Schlack and Stockade were all witness to this, and all told me I was an actual lunatic. And I remember as I'm screaming at DJ, Raver just standing behind him, making a face at me like he couldn't believe what was going on because I don't get that way. But yeah, pretty much, I wasn't happy with DJ. I tried to fight him, actually fight him in the locker room, and I kind of knew the writing was on the wall at that point. And I've only been back a handful of times, and pretty much any time I've been back was because I wrestled Joe Gacy at one of them because his opponent couldn't make it. He called me the day of and asked me if I'd be willing to do it, and I love Gacy, so I did. And then the Toby Klein Tremont match at TOD. Literally that morning, I was sitting on my couch watching TV. It was probably like 10 a.m. I had no plans. Tremont called me and goes, "Hey, Toby hurt his back last night. Do you want to come down? We'll make it a triple threat, make it a little bit easier on him." And I got dressed, got in the car, drove down. Literally that morning is when I got booked for that one. So pretty much anytime I've been at CZW since is because somebody else asked me. I'm over it with DJ. He and I actually talked not too long ago. I'm not furious with him anymore, as much as I think he's a big dumb idiot, and I think he wouldn't be surprised to hear me say that. But yeah, so that was kind of the end of that.
So you might be back one day. Who knows if the right match is, if he calls you with that right match?
Yeah, I have no. I wouldn't say it wouldn't be an automatic no. I wouldn't be against it. I'm not the one reaching out though. I'm not jumping for anything.
You've
But no,
never won. You've never won TOD. Is that still something that you would want, or is that something that you
yeah,
just?
definitely. That's definitely. I think. Yeah, I mean, as much as like
I've
people
always
give,
seen you winning it, man. I've always seen you winning it somehow. Like, I don't
I
know.
appreciate it. Um, it's one of those things like CZW is not what it once was, and I know fans love to shit on it, and rightfully so, completely rightfully so. But for me, like when I first started going to indie shows, CZW was the fucking company. If you wanted to see violence, they were the ones to go. So TOD still has that special place in my heart.
Hmm.
You can go back and watch like TOD like 7 through probably like 11, 12, maybe, yeah, probably like 7 through 12. And you could find me in the crowd. You could see me sitting in the crowd during Thumbtack Jack and DJ, literally sitting hard cam side. There's multiple times where I could point myself out. So, like, as much as people crap on them now, and again, like, it's not for everybody anymore, including me. It's probably not my favorite thing to watch anymore. But yeah, no, TOD would definitely still mean a lot to me as a person. Like just as a fan, as somebody who grew up going to CZW shows, sitting in the crowd, it would still mean a lot to me.
Do you miss VOW, Vicious Outcast Wrestling?
It was always fun.
You always
Yeah,
seem to really enjoy yourself there. I noticed in every match you were in. It was always a different Cannonball there.
I think I always had like cool matches there. Like it was never like I never had something where I was like, all right, let's see how this is gonna go. I always got to work people who I got along with real well. Um, I mean, I got to wrestle Madman Pondo there, which for me, again, like
I
going
was
back
there live front row for that. It was
oh,
amazing, Jeff. Yes, I
I
love
mean, for me, like going there and getting to wrestle Madman Pondo, like he was a dude who I definitely came up watching, so like that was cool for me. I got to wrestle him. Um, I mean, that whole show was that the year I went to the finals of the tournament, right?
Yep. You versus Raver versus Dale
Dale
or
Patrick.
Josh, one of the two.
That was Dale Patrick's. I wrestled Josh in the second round. That whole night was awesome. I went to the hospital that night, but it was a great night. Um,
Yeah,
did I
you
go?
were
No.
bleeding. You were bleeding a lot. I remember in the
Yeah,
finals.
I did not go to the hospital that night. They tried to make me, and I convinced them to super glue me because I didn't want to go sit in a hospital in West Virginia till like 5 in the morning. But every time I got to go to VOW, it was fun. I got to wrestle people who I either enjoyed or who I looked up to, like Pondo. They always had some kind of wacky gimmick matches. It was the only time I ever did razor wire, which I'm not jumping at to do again. Um, so yeah, I always had a good time there. I would if they came back again, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Speaking of razor wire, I have to ask you, Deep South,
Mhm.
IWA, your experience at that crazy campground, any crazy stories that because everyone that's been there
Oh
has told
man.
us some kind of weird story. And quickly, Kevin Brandon, thoughts on him? Are you cool with him?
I don't think I talked to him since that day. Not for any reason. Just I don't. We're not the two type of people that would be friends. I had no issue with them that day. I don't want to say anything. I think the one thing that I can kind of repeat, because there was definitely one thing I can't repeat. Maybe I'll tell you off this. Oh man, that was a long ass day. I think the one thing was driving there. Uh, Somebody texted me and they're like, "Hey, for your second round, they want you to use like snakes or something." And being an actual vegan and being an actual person who like I'm vegan for animal rights. Like I don't care if people think that's dumb or corny. Like that's what I do. Like I like animals. I don't eat them, and I wouldn't use them in a match because they didn't fucking sign up for it.
Hmm.
I remember at the time texting back like, "Hey, I'll stay in the car the whole time, like, because we're already on our way." And they text back and be like, all right, never mind. You don't have to. Don't worry about it." So that was probably my big thing with like, what the fuck am I getting myself into? Not only that, but then you go there and for like the last 20 miles into our trip, there's just no fucking cell service. You're in the middle of nowhere on this park ground at like this campground on a hill, and everybody's fucking getting hurt. I think Marcus Crane, Tremont, and I think two guys there who I didn't know all ended up going to the hospital.
Shellac got hurt too, I believe.
Schlack was already hurt. He actually came already hurt. I don't remember which injury for him that was, but he was already there, already fucked up. Uh, he didn't go to the hospital that day. Tremont was the one guy in our car who did. But it was just that was such a weird day, and it was like a 9-hour show. It was like 8 or 9 hours long. So fucking bless any fan who stuck around the whole time because I didn't want to. By the end of it, I was ready to go home pretty early.
Now
But
that was the show where you did vicious headbutts with Tank, no?
yes, yeah, and I think we talked before that, and both of us were like, "Hey, like people are getting fucked up from these headbutts. Like we should both stop doing these." And then we go out there and we ended up doing a lot of them. So, and that was a good match too. Like, as much as I'm not rushing to get back to Deep South by any means. If they came back, I can't say I would go. Uh, but I got to wrestle Tank for the first time, and that was a really cool experience.
Nice. You got anything to say about Turbo Team? Nice things. Tom Juba wants to know that.
uh, I mean, I guess it's kind of like a little bit of a plug. So my fiance, Tara Calloway, she doesn't wrestle anymore, so now her name is Samantha. She runs, she runs a
There
nonprofit.
she is. She just hearted. She's watching, man.
What's that?
Look,
Oh,
there's a heart on the screen from her.
there you go. She's literally next to me on the couch. Uh, she runs a nonprofit company called Dropkick Depression. It's to help wrestlers get the help they need when it comes to like therapy and actual mental health, and also just spread all sorts of awareness. And Tom Juba, great guy, real dastardly fella, real piece of shit actually. Uh, he runs a team called the Turbo Team. It's a group of three people, revolving door. Um, but if you're in the New Jersey area and you want to see a family-friendly show that does serve alcohol, Dropkick Depression in Old Bridge, New Jersey, it's the place to go, and you can watch the Turbo Team be a bunch of despicable human beings.
Why are you getting that?
Well, since she's right there, can I ask you a question? Why did she get into the death matches when she started doing a few of them? Like she wrestled Matt Tremont, I believe, in a light 2 match.
Yep.
She wrestled Maria Manic in a no rope barbed wire match with Matt Tremont as a special guest fucking referee. Those are 2 big matches, man. Like,
Yeah.
was that you know, giving her the hype up, telling her she
Uh,
should do this?
I don't know what it was that kind of got the bug going, but it was one of those things like, who am I to say, hey, don't do that when I'm the one fucking doing it every other weekend?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it started off, I'm pretty sure, a little bit slower, and then next thing we did another match. It was her and I versus Schlack and Maria, where I think she traded off with Schlack probably in that match more than I did. Then yeah, the no rope barbed wire with Maria. That's an awesome fucking match. That's something to go out of your way to see. Uh, but yeah, and we also did a death match against each other for at a gathering of the Juggalos. It involved a cactus, some cinder blocks, a bunch of light tubes, a plunger, all sorts of crap. So
I was gonna ask about the gathering, but we've already been on an hour. I got like probably 80 more questions I can ask you. We're gonna have to get you on again. But how was the gathering? Nothing. Just real quick. Was it fun?
Yeah. It's a great time. It was never my scene before, but I've done 3 of them, and I I had a great time every time I went. I would do it again a second, and I won't dwell too much because I'm sorry, I'm a rambling person. So.
Oh no, I'll stay on as long as you want. I don't want to keep you.
But gatherings are a great time. I mean, I got to hang out with. I kind of got to befriend the hooligans a little bit more. Great fucking dudes. Smokey C from West Virginia. Got to hang out with a lot of people who I never really got to hang out with, and I mean, like I said, it's never been my scene, but I definitely I left with a lot more respect for like the Juggalos and that whole culture. As much as it's not my music, not my thing so much, but good for them, man. Like, and they kill it, and they have a great time. They know how to have a great time.
Any crazy stories that happened there? Because I mean, that's Juggalos. Something had to have happened. Oh, we lost him.
Yep.
Hello?
Hey, I'm sorry. I got some weird Facebook call on here, so it kind of messed up my stream. Are you still with me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
All right, cool. Yeah, I got you.
What was I? I asked. Do you have like one crazy gathering story? Because that's a bunch of Juggalos. There had to be something fucked up that happened.
What's that? I can't tell that.
Anything you can tell us.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of. I mean, fuck it. There's a lot that happens. I think the thing that stood out to me most was my first year going. I went by myself, and I got there real early, and I'm just wandering around, and I walk down this path, and I pass a guy whose arm is literally like elbow to fingertip is covered in bees because he just has soda covering his hands and just bees all over it. And I did like a double take, as I think anybody would, and he just goes, "Hey man, bees are juggalos too." And I just kept walking because I didn't know what the fuck was going on in my life at this point. That's probably my favorite thing. It gets crazier, but that's probably my favorite.
Hey, this picture is really, really, really fucking cool, man.
Yes, I've been a fan of Cork since I was a little kid. I've lived in New Jersey my entire life. I never actually went there. And then we just happened to be in the area one day. And so I looked up like directions and didn't tell her where I was directing her to bring us, her being the fiance, of course. And we came on that, and I had to do the fanboy thing. I got a picture out front. I went inside and bought a red Gatorade because that's what they get when they're playing hockey on the roof. And it was one of those things like I've been a fan since I was a little kid. I'm sure that's such like a touristy dumb thing to do, but I've never got to do it, so I got to do it that day, and I was happy.
You want to answer this question from Corey Hunter if you can read it about putting on a deathmatch show?
Oh man, first person. It's probably for me. It's probably kind of cliche, but it would be G Raver. I know that doesn't go against the language thing, but in my opinion, G Raver, once he's at full health again, I don't think there's a deathmatch wrestler who I enjoy watching more. And I don't just say that because I'm buddies with him now, but I think from a standpoint, I don't think I've seen that dude have a bad match fucking ever. So he is, in my opinion, probably the best guy doing it right now. Besides for probably Tremont again. But yeah, that would be the two people I'd call. But yeah, Raver would probably be number one.
Ace Woods, he's seen the steel object, the Kenzen. Everyone's seen that, man. Everyone and their mom.
We've talked about it. But yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
you guys.
Hey, I'm gonna let you go, Jeff. I want you to enjoy your evening, but I want to end it with this. I got another question. Fingerboards. Fucking
Yeah.
fingerboards. What's up with them? Can I see one right now? Do you have any available for me to see? These things look cool. I've never seen one.
1 second. It's somewhere around here.
Do you want me to get it?
Yeah, can you get it? So yeah, when I was a kid, I was really good at tech decks and all that. I used to skateboard all the time. And so as I got older, I stopped doing it because I don't know, I was an adult at some point in my life. And then I made a joke on Facebook once about how everybody's getting sponsored by like all these shirt companies like Collar Elbow and all that was like the big thing. And I go, I just want to get sponsored by Tech Decks. somebody hit me up and he sent me a bunch, and then I started buying them all myself. And now this is
That's
the exact one from that picture. Um, I'll ask you a question real quick because I like doing this to people because it makes them think less of me. How much do you think this thing costs?
I'm assuming it's like all real material, so
Yep, real wood, ball bearing wheels, and everything.
$50.
What's that?
50?
It was $67.
That was close.
But yeah,
How
that's
many do
something.
you have? Do you have an assortment of these things or just one?
I've got a bunch. That's my most expensive, and it's been my favorite one. If you come to a show, realistically, I probably have that one or one of them in my pocket. It's almost become like my thing, like how fidget spinners became a thing for a while, where that's like what people would do. That's my thing to do when I'm like, I got nothing else to do. Like, I just pull that out of my pocket and it keeps my hand busy, and that's what I do. So,
Well, that's awesome, Jeff. Man, I want to thank you so much for taking now 65 minutes of your time tonight. You're one of my personal favorite deathmatch wrestlers. It was a fucking honor to sit here and talk to you on my
hey, I
birthday.
appreciate it. Yeah, happy birthday, by the way. Once I went to your message, I saw it was your birthday. I was like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Like this? I'm sure you got better things to do than talk to fucking little old me over here." So,
We love you, Cannonball, here on MDKC, and we would love to have you back maybe in a few months. Because, man, I'll
hey,
tell you, I got 30 more questions on my phone to ask you. So,
I tend to ramble, so I will do a part two anytime, and you just tell me to shut the fuck up when it's time.
no, we love hearing you talk. That's what this is for. Jeff, thank you, and good luck with the big wedding coming up, man.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yep, thank you. Good night, Cannonball.
Good night.